Welcome to UC Today with me, David Dungay. Today, I have with me Blair Pleasant from COMMfusion and Paul Clark from Poly. Welcome to the show, guys. How are we today?
It's good. Thanks for having us.
Doing fine. Yeah, it's great to be here once again.
Excellent. Well, look, today we're going to be talking about the return to the office trend we're all seeing right now. We're in various stages of this trend at the moment throughout the world. But before we get into that, let's do a few introductions. Blair, would you like to kick us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and the business.
Sure. So I'm Blair Pleasant, President and Principal Analyst of COMMfusion. I'm an independent analyst, and I'm also one of the BC Strategies experts. And I cover unified communications, contact center, CX, collaboration, everything that falls under the business communications area.
Great. And Paul?
So I'm Senior Vice President for Poly here in EMEA. For those people who don't know who Poly are, we're the world's leading vendor for endpoint devices, whether it be headsets, whether it be speakerphones, whether it be desk phones, all the way through to personal and group video conferencing equipment.
Superb. Right. Well, let's get straight into the conversation today. I want to start with you, Paul. We're talking about return to the office. Obviously, a very important trend. But why are we all focusing on return to the office when surely hybrid working is the new way of working?
It is the new way of working, but it's very different from what we've done before. For the last 18 months, we've been all stuck in our caves, working from home, and kind of getting used to it and getting on with things. And it has worked. We've been pretty productive as a bunch really over the last 18 months. But now offices are starting to open up. There's enough vaccinations out there. People are starting to feel pretty confident to emerge and go to new spaces. So the offices are opening, and we're going back to them, but we're not going back to them the way that we used to go to the office, because the last 18 months have shown us that, frankly, we don't have to. And at Poly, we've just commissioned research, had the results, published a paper called The Evolution of the Workplace. And that tells us that 69% of respondents to that survey believe that 9 to 5 working is done, and we're now into anytime working, which is a major shift. And essentially, that work now can be done at home, but can be done at the office. So you've got the offices opening up. We're talking about offices opening up, but we're not all wanting to go back there and live there. That same research I'm referring to, 82% of the respondents told us that, with the offices being open, they expect to, in the future, work at least one day a week from home. And actually 54% of the respondents told us they want to do 50-50. So yes, offices are opening up. That's the trend at the moment. But hybrid working, that multiple location work that we do, is absolutely a trend that everyone's experiencing.
Blair, what's your take on this return to the office? Will we see some of these old ways of working that we all forgot about over the last 2 years? Will they start to creep back in? What's your take on that?
I think it's going to be a mix, and it's going to depend on the company and the location. So what I've been saying is that my expectations are about 1/3 of workers are going to be in the office full time, 1/3 will be working from home or remotely full time, and 1/3 are going to be a combination where they go into the office 2 or 3 days a week. So I think those in-office days are going to be used for collaboration and brainstorming and meeting with customers and meeting with colleagues and doing things that we're not as effective at when we can work remotely. If we're writing a document or working on a spreadsheet, most of us can do that, pretty effectively from home if we have the right environment. But we're missing that collaboration, that, water cooler stuff, meeting with colleagues. So people are going to want to get back into the office for that. Also, we have to remember that, there are some people who don't have the optimal home office environment. There are younger workers who have roommates. There are parents who have young kids. I've got my gardener here right now. So not everyone has the right home environment to be working at home all the time. So some people do want to go back into the office because for some people they can actually get more work done there. I think most of us have found, those last year and a half, 2 years, we've gotten a lot more done working from home. But for some people, they actually prefer the office. So it's going to be quite a mix. And I think the key word is flexibility. Organizations have to be flexible.
Yeah, I mean,
so go ahead.
Absolutely. I was gonna say actually, Paul, like water cooler collaboration, as you mentioned there, Blair. Very important sort of type of collaboration that is not always easy to replicate in this remote sort of environment. But I mean, Paul, I wanted to ask you, what does that translate to in terms of what workers need and what they or demand now that they're sort of back in that office environment?
Well, so Blair's 100% right, and I love her statistics because it's easier to remember than mine. One third, one third, one third, and it's going to fall out something like that ultimately, because I mean we may hear, in the press about 100% of the people are going to be back in the office as the big boss. I want them all there. In the global fight for talent, we're going to find that there's going to be a new balance, and one third, one third, one third probably maybe where it ends up. What's absolutely clear though is when people go back to the office, or even to work from home, they want an equity of experience. They want to be able to participate, almost independent of the location that they choose to participate from. And we're seeing that the demands that we saw in our research were absolutely about give me equity of experience. And yes, there's going to be challenges for companies because there's going to be a sense of, am I being included in the conversations? You've got the spontaneity that comes from walking down a corridor. All of those things are absolutely true. But when I'm collaborating, I want it to be such that if I'm in the office, it's video enabled, because for the last 18 months, I've been using video on my desktop at home. I'm going to want to have the environment that I work in conducive to the work that I do. So I don't want to be distracted by noise from colleagues. So businesses are going to have to be thinking about that. It's one of those interesting things. But before COVID hit, the single biggest issue that employees told us they experienced in the office, and they hated it, was noise and distraction from colleagues. In our recent research, we see that front and center again is concerns from people about the noise from colleagues. So 60% of people told us that they were really quite concerned about going back into the office and not being able to concentrate because of noise. And it became quite visceral. 42% of people told us they might actually experience noise rage, whatever that actually means. But a real response to the fact that when I was at home, I had better control of my environment, although that wasn't clean itself, because 32% of people told us they did find home working distracting as well because of the noise round about them. So employers, as they bring people back into the office, are going to have to think about the environment. They're going to have to think about the enablement for equity of experience, and they're going to have to support people because, as Blair said, different type of workers expect different type of things. So there's going to require a lot of flexibility from employers in the new world we're moving into.
Yeah, I mean that noise rage you speak of. I know, Blair, you're currently you've got the gardener outside with the leaf blower. What's your take on this noise factor that we're hearing so much about these days?
Well, it's a big issue. And, for some people, working from home is noisier, and for some people, it's in the office. I know so many people who, have the open office environment, and they just hate it because they can't collaborate, they can't think, they can't do their work. So obviously, companies are coming up with different ways to overcome that. We've got headsets from Poly and other companies. There's tools in the software for in the meeting software for noise reduction. We're using a lot of AI to be able to detect, what's someone's voice, what's, a dog barking. So we're seeing great uses of AI for that kind of thing. So I think the technology is going to keep getting better to help with noise reduction. But I think the important issue you talked about, why people are, what workers are really demanding. So I think what they're really demanding is the opportunity to collaborate because, in person, because that's what we've really missed. We've been able to do it all virtually, but I think people really want that in-person collaboration. So, setting up rooms and, video conferencing rooms and meeting rooms and huddle rooms so that people can do that collaboration, because that's really what people are missing. There's just so much you can do over video, but I think eventually people really do want to be back in the meeting room and back in the office to be able to do that collaboration and brainstorming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Paul, you spoke about creating those sort of experiences, if you like, regardless of location, making sure everyone has the same sort of access to that working life or working experience. I hear a lot of talk about this in the market. But how far away are we actually from making this a reality? Is this something that is possible to actually provide? And I think you call it an equitable experience regardless of location.
Yeah, yes, it definitely you're definitely able to go a long ways towards it. But to Blair's comments, business leaders do need to think about the work tasks that are being undertaken, because the different spaces support different types of work tasks. There was research done about 10 or so years ago that looked at the normal type of work that a knowledge worker does in a day, and it was broken into, it was called the 4 C's: concentrate, communicate, collaborate, contemplate. And what we're seeing is the office, again to Blair's point, is really being used as a center for collaboration, maybe a bit of communication. But if you want to contemplate or if you want to concentrate, you might want to do that at home, subject to having the right environment. So that's the start point of getting the right work environment. Is, well, what task is it you're going to do? Then after that, it is, how are you going to do your job? And we talk a lot about collaboration. If we think about that for the moment, we have been collaborating remotely for those past 18 months, and we've been using video. Who wants to be the first person that goes back into the office when everyone else is still working from home and find out that they don't have video in that meeting room to join? So there's, if you like, a clear demonstration of how you would bring in equity, as you want to have video both in the meeting room and the office to match that which you have at home. But of course, you go one stage further, and now there's 3 people in the meeting room in the office and 2 people sitting in the home offices. The 2 people sitting in the home offices, they're both presented on screen with their own tiles. The 3 people in the office are presented as 3 people in one tile. So they're like a third of the presence in the meeting. Okay, so you then think about, how can technology bring in additional equity of experience? Well, it can do that by saying that there's 3 people in the meeting room. So we'll show the meeting room in a tile, but actually there's 2 people conversing in that meeting room. Let's show them in their own tiles. And the latest products from Poly, the E70 new camera and the X70 video bar, they break down that environment and they'll create 3 video feeds. So if you have the right UCaaS solution in play, you can take those 3 video feeds, and now what you have is, you would then have the 2 people sitting at home with their own tiles, 2 people who are conversing in the meeting room in their own tiles, although they're in that meeting room, and then the whole meeting room itself. So essentially 5 tiles, but bringing everyone to a very similar level of interaction. That's equity of experience, and it's only through thinking use cases like that that enables Poly to develop the technology to help equity of experience. So it's a wonderful example of how we can level out, irrespective of where people are participating, that they're all contributing equally and getting the same value.
So if I can ask a question, does Poly provide the names for each of those individuals? So the people who are in the meeting room, does it show up in their individual tiles with their names?
It's possible to do that. That would be really down to the you see as a service provider that you had that would do that. But we know who's talking and we know who's participating. So in theory, it's possible, but that wouldn't be something we would actually do. That would be part of the solution. And that's another thing where it's absolutely key when you look at how the total solution provides that equity. Is it's an ecosystem solution that's providing it, because there are so many parts that have to come together. We're a critical part from Poly by supplying the endpoint, but the vendor that you use, how it interacts, that's also very critical as well, which is why Poly, we're very strong with our alliance partners globally.
Excellent. So, Paul, maybe you can tell me, contactless environments, particularly for meeting rooms. Are those still in high demand right now? We're in a lot of areas in the world we're seeing the pandemic seems to be dying off. Unfortunately, not here in the UK. But what is that demand like for those contactless environments?
Meaning being able to walk in and join a meeting room and not have to a huge interest in that. With our products, we actually have technology within our products on the surface of the products that kill organisms. So it's a germ killing factor called microban on our product. So you're pretty safe using poly products, but absolutely, people are feeling very comfortable with their own devices, and being able to walk into a room and continue to use your own device is something we see significant demand for. So we support that. We have a product. We talk about video a lot, so I'll use that as an example. We have a device called a Studio USB, where you can walk in with your laptop and you connect the USB cable into your laptop. So really, you're not touching the screen, you're not touching the video device, and essentially you're remote from it. You also can walk in and use your mobile phone to control the services as well. So there's a lot of people thinking about, how do I make sure that in the future I'm low touch to the environment, I'm keeping myself safe, and we absolutely support that at Poly.
Excellent, Blair. I mean, where else do you feel employers need to be cognizant of this return to the office trend? When setting up, maybe not just technology, but office space generally.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been hearing about some organizations that are using like movable furniture because they want to be able to, create these collaboration pods, where they need it. But obviously the big thing is, as we mentioned, excuse me, video. Everybody wants that video collaboration because we're just so used to it right now. But there's no one size fits all, so for some people it's going to be, the small huddle room. For some other people it's going to be the large conference room. So that hasn't really changed. I think what has changed is being aware of the environment and, using the technologies to know, room utilization, how many people are in a room. Because if you're still trying to, keep on top of social distancing, which most companies are, you want to make sure that there aren't, too many people in the room. So using more technologies for that to make sure that the environment is correct, checking for room availability and booking rooms ahead of time so that you're making sure that you have the right space when you need it. And you had asked about hands-free. I'm seeing a big demand for voice controlled controls for these types of things. So checking room availability, booking rooms, controlling the conferencing devices. Using voice control for all this is still that's what I'm seeing a big demand for. But especially, limiting the number of people in the room is huge. But really transforming the office spaces into places that are optimized for teams to collaborate is really key. And I'm glad Paul brought up the democratization of meetings, because that's the other thing that I'm really hearing about, and the different screen layouts and the different ways to make the in-office and out-of-office people feel that they're equal, and it's just as easy for them to communicate and collaborate regardless of where they are.
Yeah, one of the things that, many of the things that Blair mentioned are absolutely things that are coming to, and it's across the globe, measuring air quality in meeting rooms, which we can do in our products, being able to determine how many people are in meeting rooms, we can do, all of those things are about, we were doing that work before COVID hit, but it's really come to the fore now as something that's very interesting. And so there's big dynamics and change. One of the interesting ones is also, as well as we sit here, none of us are wearing shirt and ties. So we've seen as well a kind of an interesting trend in, the casualization of business attire. And that doesn't mean we're going to turn up in, flip-flops and shorts. Well, I hope it doesn't. But it is true. You've seen a big change. 53% of people in our research told us they believe the suit is now dead as part of it, isn't it? And that is, as we move to this hybrid working, it kind of makes sense, not the flip flops comment, but the suit being, because we're now in personal spaces. All of us are calling in from personal spaces, so we're now exposing ourselves more. So we're more comfortable in who we are and our value that we add, rather than hiding behind the historic suits of armor that we used to wear. So that's to all intents and purposes, that's something else that we're not going to go back to post COVID. Business casual is here to stay.
Excellent. Well, look, we're coming towards the end of the conversation. I'd really like to give our viewers a few key takeaways to take with them to help them with their own office strategies as they return to the workplace. Paul, should we start with you? We've spoken around a lot of different themes today. What are your key takeaways to those business owners sort of looking to get this return to the office right?
So it's absolutely critical people recognize hybrid working is here to stay. That's good for employers because it gives you more motivated staff. You can recruit from a larger geographical gene pool. You have greater accessibility to staff because you can think about for example disabled workforce inclusion. You can increase your recruitment from stage in life, maybe childcare or parent care. So there's a lot to be said for employers to embrace hybrid working. For employees, it is fantastic. There's less commuting time. They told us in the research they love the work-life balance and they feel less stressed. So when you look at the benefits to employers and you look at the benefits to employees, it is a win-win. There is a balance to be struck, which goes back to the earlier points from Blair on that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But do it right, capture it well, and companies will thrive, as will employees.
Excellent. And Blair, what are your key takeaways from today's conversation?
I think for organizations, what's really key is to focus on the employee experience and what the employee needs, because it's not going to be the same across the board. Again, younger workers are going to have a different situation than older workers. It depends if you're, rural or urban. So everyone has a different type of situation. So it's really important to focus on the employee experience and understand what it is they need. And if you do want people to come back into the office, you need to give them a compelling reason. Because as Paul said, we love working I've been working from home for years, but for most people, this is new and they're really enjoying it, not having the commute, maybe having more time to work out, having that work-life balance that they didn't have before. So people really enjoy that. So if you do want people to come back into the office, give them a compelling reason. So provide socialization, provide things that people are going to want to do. And for the most part, that is going to be, that socialization, that collaboration, that meeting of the minds. So provide the right technology, tools, and spaces so that people can do that.
Excellent. Well, look, Blair, Paul, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed today's discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching me, David Dungay, on UC Today. If you like today's conversation, please give us a like and a share on social media. That's it from me. I'll see you next time.